Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today. Chapter 1399, The Weakness of a Hero. She glared at Northern with something close to hatred, though it burned hotter than hatred. Pure, incandescent anger. Why bring me to somewhere like this? Why is he even here in the first place? Northern, despite seeing that anger plain as day, didn't match it. He was almost offensively casual. Why did I bring you here? Fairly, I've forgotten. He squinted, struggling to remember. Things really had gone too blurry after that gruesome evolution. I do remember though that I made a promise to you. Wait, did I not? He shrugged it off. Oh well, who cares? He crossed me and messed with my family. I messed with him quite easily, but I couldn't bring myself to kill him, knowing you have scores you want to settle. Raven was silent for a moment, staring at the man propped against a small rock. The Kageyama patriarch stared back. His lean face had been consumed by cruel scars that twisted his features into something barely recognizable. He chuckled and giggled, looking into Raven's eyes with the intensity of someone who had lost every thread of reason and found the loss amusing. And Raven, standing before the presence of this man, could not move. Not a single finger. Not a single step. She trembled, and no matter how much she tried to suppress it, the trembling only deepened. Paragon, someone of her caliber. Facing the source of her childhood trauma and still finding herself unable to hold still. Northern watched it happen and couldn't make sense of it. He'd seen Raven cut through battlefields without flinching. He'd seen the cold precision she wielded like a second blade. But here, in front of a scarred and broken man sitting against a rock, that precision had dissolved into something Northern had never associated with her. Fear. A Paragon's mind was reinforced and restructured. The Ascension burned away so many of the frailties that plagued ordinary people, and most Paragons found old wounds, old traumas, simply couldn't grip them the way they once had. The architecture of their consciousness had been rebuilt too thoroughly for those cracks to persist. But Raven's cracks had persisted. Whatever the Kageyama patriarch had carved into her as a child had gone deeper than the Ascension could reach. I see why she got so angry. Northern studied her for a moment longer. The trembling she couldn't stop. The jaw locked so tight the muscles in her neck were cording. Or maybe she was as strong as she painted herself to be. And this was simply her weakness. Everyone had one. The patriarch was still laughing. His slender shoulders shook with it, wet hair falling around his face. In a few weeks, the man had shed every shred of the authority he once carried. He looked like a pitiful thing now, broken and amused by his own ruin. I brought you here because you also deserve to heal. Northern's voice cut through whatever dark place Raven had sunk into. She flinched, then slowly turned her gaze toward him. Her brows, carved from steel, furrowed so darkly they could have torn through stone. Northern paused only for a moment. I know what it feels like to run away from a wound that cuts deep inside of you. Ever since I came to this world, that has been the only thing I did. He chuckled, though the sound carried no humor. Of course, your injury is far more grave than mine and harder to ever heal from. I don't know if I can ever heal from having to be killed by my own brothers several times, chopped to pieces and then forced to watch myself come back together piece by piece. He gestured loosely. The Kageyama clan is always open for you to go back and completely destroy them if you ever decide to. But right now, right here, there's something you need to settle. Northern fell silent, scratching his head. This was the hard part. He'd been turning it over since he found out, and he still didn't have a clean way to say it. How Shin entered all of this. How there was a possibility that Shin was her father. There was no clean way. He inhaled and spoke anyway. Recently, I happened to find some rather disgusting truths. Keeping them hidden will drive a wedge between us. Far as I'm concerned, they might very well drive a wedge between us right now. Raven turned away from the patriarch and faced Northern fully, waiting for him to speak. Did you ever know anything about your birth? About your mother? Raven was silent. Her expression fought to hold its shape, that cold mask she wore like armor, but it was fracturing. She bit her lip, and the effort to keep her face still only made the cracks more visible. She stopped and didn't speak for a couple of seconds. My mother was a noble of a small kingdom who birthed me out of spite. She hated me and treated me worse than the Kageyama ever could have. Before the patriarch retrieved me from her. Her voice went low. And killed her. She lowered her head. He called me his daughter and bought me all sorts of candies. And they were the best thing I'd ever had since being born. It was all like that. Until I awakened. She trembled. No matter how hard she tried to cement herself in place, it didn't work. The effort only made the failure more visible. My awakening caused my father to lose himself, and brought the worst out of my brothers. It was all my fault. She couldn't lift her eyes. Not to Northern or to the Kageyama patriarch, who sat against the rock and chuckled, low and eerie, as though her pain were a song he recognized. Northern sighed. How do I even start with her? This really is not my strong suit. He stood there, at odds with the situation in a way that no amount of power or talent could solve. Chapter 1400 Retribution? Left to Northern, he didn't want to do any of this. The only person that could make him commit to what he'd rather not do without question was Aisha herself. And Northern was here now, facing Raven and trying to tell her that Shin was her adopted father. Not this man. But he wasn't in the place to say it. Not yet. So he turned to the patriarch instead and walked towards him. He stood in front of the man. For the first time, the grin on the patriarch's face had died, and he was looking up at Northern with an expression carved from stone. Still, hard, and emptied of all that performative amusement. Northern looked down at him and scoffed. I presume you're suddenly growing tired of seeing, The patriarch slowly lowered his eyes and said nothing. Raven watched this happen, and something shifted behind her gaze. It wasn't that Northern was strong enough to tame the man. She'd known that much already. It was that the patriarch could be tamed at all. That underneath the presence and the control and the weight of him, there was just a man, sitting on stone, lowering his head because someone stronger told him to. Northern gripped the man's hair and hauled him to his feet. The patriarch rose unsteadily, and Northern kicked him forward from behind. He staggered towards Raven. She flinched. It was not a small flinch. She took a full leap away from the man, her body moving before her mind could catch up. Northern paused, his eyes widening. Oh hell, well? She looked like a cornered animal trying to hold still long enough to pass for tame. Every line of her was wound tight, every muscle primed to bolt. Come to think of it, she had always been like this somehow. In a way, always calculating. Always mapping the room for people who were threats, for the precise angle at which she'd need to strike if things turned. That was Raven. That had always been Raven. And it was exactly the thing that made her so broken. Northern moved behind her and placed a hand on her shoulder. It's okay. If his attempt was to calm the girl, he had gone about it in the worst way possible. The moment his hand touched her, she flinched again and launched forward, but Northern was already there. She leaped right into him, and before she could spring away, he wrapped his arms around her and held firm. Raven's eyes darted between the patriarch and the walls and the stone beneath her feet, searching for something that wasn't coming. The cold composure she wore like armor had cracked apart, and beneath it was something far younger, far more fragile. She fought Northern's grip with sharp, fractured movements, the kind that had no plan behind them, only panic. Then she stopped. She slumped against him, face quaking, her body small and still inside his arms. Portal opened beside them. Raven didn't notice. She was staring past Northern's shoulder to where the patriarch stood with his gaze still fixed on the ground. His head bowed in that same forced reverence. Shin and Aisha stepped through the swirling light and stood in silence for a moment. The patriarch did not move. He did not raise his head even with Shin standing right there. Shin looked at Northern holding Raven. Then he looked at the patriarch. A somber light passed across his face and he crossed the distance between them and lowered himself to his knees. Aisha stood to the side and waited. In the silence that filled the cave, Shin's slightly gruff voice came. Suho, I'm sorry. The patriarch raised his head. He saw Shin and his hands fisted, veins crawling up along his forearms. His eyes flicked to Northern, and he lowered his head again, slowly and reluctantly. Northern released Raven and turned back to face them. He nodded at Shin, who continued, I abandoned you when you needed me the most. I became a monster and showed you how to become one far worse than I ever was. Even when I sought retribution, I never sought it with you. I sought it away from you. I was running away from my sins, and I never understood that until a few months back. Shin's hands trembled on his thighs, fingers curling and uncurling against the fabric of his pants. Suho. His voice cracked, splintering into something wet and ruined. Even Northern, who found himself usually averse towards Shin, felt a weightful shift in his chest at the sound. Whatever walls his father had ever built, his voice had shed them all. Shin bowed his head and tears ran down his face. Suho, I know I will never be able to gain retribution. I will never be able to fix the past I created. Never be able to fix the you that I created. You didn't create me. Suho lunged. He grabbed Shin by the collar, and both of them tumbled across stone, the sound of it sharp and ugly in the quiet cave. Northern moved to intervene, but Aisha caught his eye and shook her head. His feet stilled, and he settled back into his position, watching the two of them. Suho sat atop Shin and shouted, "Made me? Don't give yourself such astounding credit." He grinned like something unhinged and slammed a fist into Shin's nose. Blood sprayed across stone. He hit him again, and again, each blow punctuated with a laugh that was half giggle, half snarl. "I was made by myself, you fool. I looked at the mistakes our ancestors made, the ones that carved their failures into the family name. I took every scar and wove them into my very flesh, becoming an embodiment of everything they failed to transcend." He spread his arms wide, still straddling Shin's chest, and laughed at the ceiling of the cave. "Look at me, Shin. Look at me. I am the greatest Kageyama patriarch to ever exist. I slaughtered the elders, slew every one of those people. And yet here I am, still ruling the shadows of the world even better than they ever did. Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today.